Greetings and welcome to David's Way Cooking. I'm David, let's do this. Today we're gonna cook one of my absolute favorite dishes of all time, Beouf Bourguignon. And we got all we need here, which is a big cast iron Dutch oven, some flour, 1.5 kilos approximately of chuck steak. We got our vegetables, which is a couple of small onions or a big onion, 2 carrots, 1 stick of celery, 3 cloves of garlic, and we got our smaller onions, which we're gonna braise with the stew later. And of course, red wine and veal stock and seasoning. And before we do anything else, as usual, stable cutting board and sharp knife. So, and this dish is quite rustic, so don't cut down everything into micro pieces. I mean, it's quite nice to get this kind of rustic, larger pieces of vegetables. And I mean, this will cook for about 1.5 to 2 hours, so everything will kind of merge together anyway, so you don't really have to be that precious with this. Just rough chunks will do just fine. And our garlic just roughly chopped like so. And when it comes to the beef, you have to use a cut that has a lot of marbled fat in it, because otherwise it will dry out within 20 minutes. So, and as I said, quite a rustic dish, so let's keep this very rustic and do chunks like this. And I think it's quite nice to get your own couple of chunk of this proportion where you can really, kind of separate the meat. It's nice. And all the connective tissue and so on will kind of melt and won't be a problem at all. And that's why it's called braising steak as well sometimes. Start with some oil. This is just a neutral rapeseed oil. You can use whatever oil you want, olive oil, canola. So we're gonna lightly dust the meat in flour, because the flour, first of all, will give it some color, plus it will thicken the casserole slash stew a bit. Let's see if it, nope, not yet. You want it to be sizzling, otherwise you won't get any color. If it isn't hot enough, take the meat out and wait until it's hot enough. Here we go. And this is what really fascinates me about these kind of rustic dishes. I mean, imagine in France where the lords were like, "Oh, we can't eat chuck. It's extremely disgusting. It's tough, etc., etc." And then the peasants come and like, "Oh, we'll take some chuck. We'll take some chuck," and they'll just transform it into something extremely beautiful just by giving it a couple of hours of love. That's really the thing. Historically, poor people around the world could eat like kings if they knew how to cook. And don't overcrowd your pan, because if you do and the meat is touching each other, it will create steam and it will start to boil instead of sear, which we want. Because we want that color on there, because color is flavor. Literally, thanks to the Maillard reaction. And now when we sear the meat, let's go in with the vegetables. And then in with our meat. Just stir that around. Now it's time to season. Couple of big pinches. And some black pepper, of course. Like so. And here we have a couple of sprigs of rosemary, pretty much of thyme, and a couple of bay leaves, which we want in there. And then we kind of deglaze the pan with about half a liter of red wine. A little bit like so. and then about a liter of beef or veal stock. And then we put the lid on and let this cook on a low temperature, simmer for about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how big the chunks of beef you've chosen. And when there's about an hour to 45 minutes left, we're gonna put in our small onions, because they will kind of braise in the liquid and become kind of jammy and sweet, and they're just delicious. All right, so the stew has been cooking for about 2 hours, 2:10 maybe, because the chunks of meat were so big. But now they're really, really, really tender, and the onions went in there about an hour before it was done. So, and also I have also fried up some button mushrooms and bacon. I know that some people add those in the beginning, but I personally feel that if you add the bacon in the beginning, it kind of overpowers the whole dish, in my opinion. And I personally don't really like mushrooms to be kind of soggy and mushy that they become when they cook along during the whole process. So let's plate some. A nice couple of pieces of beef and some sauce, a couple of onions, and a few carrots. And then we'll just take some mushrooms and carefully scatter them around, and a couple of pieces of bacon as well. And this dish it's so delicious during the winter or the autumn when it's cold outside and you just want something that warms your belly. You can serve this with mashed potatoes, with roasted potatoes, with boiled potatoes. I personally prefer this dish with just regular old boiled potatoes. It's so delicious. Oh yeah! Oh yeah! So good! See you next time.